There's a burden I want us to digest. Aya caspinate. Perisola capresa night combresque finate. Celebra casco beriza sin franta sabicain. I want us to pray before we go into what God will have us look into tonight. Exodus chapter 6. We'll read from verse 8. Exodus chapter 6, we'll read from verse 8. One of the things that God does if he wants to help a people is that he demystifies the wiles of darkness. He gives you understanding of the things that Satan is precipitating, the weapons that he's fashioning, the plans that he's putting in place to see that you fall. And many times when that comes, it is important that we take it seriously so that we don't become victims in the day when Satan's wickedness is matured for execution. I found out that the man that walks in God's will be 10 steps ahead of Satan. And one of such ways is that he will tell you what to cry about, what to pray about. And many times when God is telling you what to pray about, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense because in the immediate, you can't see the things he's saying. But when he says it, you raise a cry. And when you raise that cry, when the time of adversity comes, when men fall, you will now find that cry standing by you to make sure that you don't utterly fall. The Bible says a righteous man may fall several times. He will not utterly fall. Because before that thing came, there was a hand underneath. I want us to pray a prayer for ourselves. He says, and I will bring you in unto the land concerning the which I did swear to give it to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. And I will give it you for an heritage. I am the Lord. Do you understand that statement? It's me, God, that is saying this thing. I'm going to do this thing. I'm not saying that you are going to, it is dependent on you. It's going to be an inheritance because I have sworn. And I cannot turn back on my promise over you. There are many times that God has said things to you like this, and he even told you, I am God, I can do it. But somehow along the line, there is something Satan does to bring men out of what God has spoken of. Can you give me verse 9? And Moses spake so. That means the way I read that verse, Moses went back to them and said, see what God has said. Moses spake so unto the children of Israel. But they hearkened not unto Moses, not because they didn't want to. Not because they don't like God, they don't believe God, not because they doubt Moses is God's servant, but the reason they couldn't hearken to hear and to walk with is because there was anguish of spirit and there was cruel bondage. This was the wisdom of Pharaoh. That when Moses came initially and told the children of Israel, come, I'm going to go and meet Pharaoh because God is delivering you. They believed Moses. They even gave him Elder Aaron to go along. So he didn't go alone. And they were willing for him to represent them. They believed it. Until when he represented them and Pharaoh now looked and said, it's because you guys are free. The reason you can hear God's word and believe it and you are looking for liberty from what you are crying about is because you are free. He said, let's multiply their labor so that we will break their spirit. It was there I found out that labor, physical labor, can break the spirit of a man. That was why God said we should labor in 6 days and in the 7th day we should rest. Because if rest is taken away from a man, you break the man's spirit. It becomes hard for the man to hear and obey God. So most of what we have as jobs, most of what we have as businesses, most of what we even have as schools have been structured along the lines of Antichrist. So that when you go to work and come back, your spirit is broken, you can't pray. When you go to business and come back, your spirit is broken. You can't serve God. The reason you can't serve God is that it has been designed to operate as bondage. During COVID-19, I found out that a nation can run without all this helter-skelter thing we are doing. I mean, banks, you could still withdraw money, you could buy things. And I was asking myself, then why were we doing those things all the while? And I found out that in the UK, they go to school by 9 o'clock. And I think they close by 1 or 2. And then their education is better than our own, that we go by 7:30. And then come back by 3:30 or 4 or so. What was the problem? The Antichrist designed bondage. And what the bondage does is 2 things. There is the cruel bondage that weakens your body, so that when you come back from work, when you come back from business, you are too tired to spend time with God. You have wasted already. But there was a deeper one. The anguish of spirit. I didn't come to teach this. I just came to raise a prayer point. This is the one Satan attacks you. It's not as if you walk and you are tired. Have you been in your room before? It's not as if you did anything, but your mind walked over time until you were wearied of yourself. It's as if you should remove your mind and keep somewhere. God does not allow a human mind to operate that way. It is demons that bring anguish of spirit. They weary your mind with thoughts. They weary your mind with worry, with experiences, because they know a point will come that you cannot hearken to what God said. So even if God looks at you and says you'll be great, you are trying to, but you can't believe it. If God looks at you and says you will enjoy, you are trying to. Something has walked long enough so that men will weary out. The Nigerian politics system even operates with this kind of a thing. If you make people poor long enough, they will value Indomie and spaghetti and sell their voting right. It is caused by anguish of spirit. And you know, when a man is in anguish of spirit, his judgments are wrong. So you find a man that stole palm oil, and they will put tire and burn him. Then you find a man that stole 200 billion, and people go to his house and hail him. Sir, great man. And they give him convoy. Because the man under anguish does not realize that the guy that stole palm oil stole less than the guy that stole billions. It's because of such things. Moses was now in trouble. Moses was preaching. People could not believe. People could not hear God. They could not walk in it. The thing that needed to be dealt with first was the anguish of spirit and the cruel bondage. If you look at the economy of the world, you will find out that Satan is laboring to bring us to a point where we spend our lives in bondage, so that no matter how much God speaks to us, we cannot attain it. I want us to raise a cry. God, for the sake of me being able to hear you and obey, take away the anguish of spirit and take away the cruel bondage. You see, your bondage may not be poverty. Your bondage may be that it is lack of marriage, it is lack of job, it is lack of finances, it is lack of friends. Something that has bound you long enough that if God said go for evangelism, you first tell God, if you can just fix this thing first. God is not unaware that this thing can affect the life of a man. I needed to make that cry specific. What is the bondage around my life that is making it hard for me to obey God? Some of you, the bondage is sickness. You can't fast because you have ulcer. So when God say fast, you can't go with him. When God say pray, there is this physical weariness. Somehow you can't explain that wearies you out. When God said do something, there is a job, there is something that will not let you do his good will. Can you raise a cry? If I were you, I would take advantage of this moment so that my mind and my heart can hearken to the counsel of God and walk in the good will of the Father. Salemana masaka pelana meana mosanta yatani kabela kombrekes kovelante kapinata kai ubranda baria kababaski babonde kebeski vavante kai Rumande Cabriala Takoske Vivande Sabrecatelia Ibrokobo Zoto Lekedibra Cambre Saveri Taliatani Ayande kape kabambre kapalante kapa lebra babakaba paliata cambre keteski balanta. You are in a business. There's something, if you get it, it will remove you from bondage. It will spare you time and you will serve God better. Can you raise a cry? I want to be able to hearken to you, oh God. Ikakamante ya kai kai akumbra kababante kaila komintaka ebrambe kebeski bambara kabia abrako balanda sabreketeski valanta arukante brende sivalante yakwa abrakuliete kibrande kabela kabambe kata abrapapala takambre kababaria kaba abrapo kabela kabamba katai kabatwa. Help me, oh God.
Yaba de Zuziata Ikebeke Duzi Ambereto Zizoke Ambereto Zigalata Yato Beke Imate Paratas Ike Boya Amono Ikebeke de Mekatoya Gabata
remove the anguish in my spirit, oh God. Help me, oh God. You are the Lord of the Sabbath. Take away our ambition. Take away the abundance that we may hearken unto you. Look upon me, Lord of hosts. Look upon me, Lord of the Sabbath. Oh, Yakama. We come to the Lord of the Sabbath that we may find refreshing, that we may find rest, so that we can act, no God.
Ya baba
Saila manta kambe sipalatwa apranda kabambe kabebelia tabanda araba kabala tabanda kapiana nanto rakatesh kabamba ya kabia rid us of the bondage
likoporotoa ya baba
sai kai markete kabanta parasu balate kabakai abranda baba kamba takapantwa tapai abrakabapaya la brambeke tebakato abeba my God and my Father aime abranda baba kabambas kapata kabe ababa la tabriana kamba bala kabe abrakateske baba kabe abata sabata kapo abraba kaba ratwa kapo abakaba baba ayape rid me of the anguish of spirits sakete makwatani abanta kwatani atanakwata alebra abamba kabata babambe kabala kwataba abrebebeske bebe santo masai arako bakuria kabapatali ababe abakaba babaria taba alikwa tanta tabanta keba la branda kapanani la tabo abrakamba la tatina kabla na kamna takaba arababa babamba bakaba baba sai tomo saka aikete mbakepa abanda kapala bambea arwata baba kabla la kambe abrapenanta kabla kambe abrakabala tatoska peta abebanda satesku belatwa ariolo rosa semanga sikeba papa ambabala kabamba kabakabe arapapa ya papanda kate abrakabambe kababambe kababate arunda babakambe kababate abrakapepeske periata na kape abrabakaba baskaba la tua yambe yakai yai olomo arumba ai abranda kababamba kabakaba abranda kababamba kabakaba ebreketeske kabala tapiana kambala takaba apuria kababaska ai tobo satai apambe kai kamwakata abranda kababala kai ayanda babala kapina da kabai abraba pai la manu anato help me, oh God, and me oh no more no kwakai liatanate apunga na itana muate ayasai samoko akumo to ko veti akwata abembaye kabambe babaria kabanteka abrakateske bamba kaba abramba kabala kabana da piana kabala daba ababomba bakaina kwatande abeya panante beskita paluka tuwa help me, oh God. Jesus, help my life. You are the Lord of the Sabbath. Shota abambe kapepata abramba kapepata elibra kababalamba kababada abrakopia kabambala kabada kapepeske pelante abibana ajaito zaka in the name of Jesus. In the name of Jesus. Listen. If you know how Satan works, what you think he's looking for many times is not what he wants. The Bible speaks in the days of Gideon that the Midianites trampled on Israel, and every time the Israelites plant, they will leave them. When it is time for before harvest, they will go and destroy their food. Not take it, they will destroy it. They kept Israel consistent in bondage, and Israel thought it was about food and bondage. They didn't know that something was happening called the anguish of the spirit. An angel, not a pastor, an angel appeared to Gideon and told Gideon, thou mighty man of valor. Gideon could not believe an angel. Do you know what it means that an angel showed up? He looked at the angel and said, what do you mean by that? And if he said there is God, where is God? Where is the God that? How do you look at an angel and you cannot hearken to what he is saying? You can't believe him because of bondage. He said, you are a mighty man of valor. He said, no. He said, we don't even need to anoint you. Go in this thy might. Do you know Gideon was still afraid? At the point God told Gideon, he said, if you are afraid, take Phurah your servant and go to the camp of the enemy. You will hear even your enemies will tell you that you are a victor. He took the dream of his enemies. Angelic encounter could not make him believe what God was saying. All because of bondage. Many of you, there's a lot God has whispered upon your life, and because of one addiction, one problem, one challenge in your family, something has stayed long enough that when God speaks now, you will look at that thing. Then you will now tell God, can you still use me? You cannot use someone like me. That thing has arrived what it wanted. Satan is not necessarily enjoying the sin you commit. No. You can ask God for forgiveness right now and be forgiven, and your ways are right with God. But he keeps making you go back again and again. He wants your mind to come to a point that the day God says something to you, you cannot accept it. Do you know what happened to Moses? 40 years as a fugitive. Jehovah spoke out of a burning bush that was not consumed. You know what he told God? He told God that I am a stammerer. How do you tell God that made your tongue you are a stammerer? Are you saying that he was not aware you were a stammerer when he called you? Bondage has a way of stopping men from hearing God. Pharaoh knows it. Governments of this world, they know it. Why do you think they put people under bondage? Don't you know that there is food? There was food during COVID-19, but the palliatives were locked down. As long as men are in bondage, they cannot hear God well. It's a principle of darkness. But Jesus came and said, I am the Lord of the Sabbath. That means you don't need to wait on the seventh day to enter rest. If I come, I can give you rest and refreshing so that you will be able to reason well. Why do you think he said we should worship him on the Sabbath after resting? He knew that day when you have rested and there's no troubles around your life, anything he tells you, you will believe it. He knew it. He knew your days of work will not allow you to hear him well. So when he chose priests that will stand in the gap and intercede for men, he told the priest not to walk because he knew bondage as a way of making men not hear God. I looked upon a pastor many years ago. I saw the famine that he was doing and the stress. And I said, with all this thing you are doing, when do you now have time to pray for the church and to study? He said, which time? I have to feed my family. So when he comes, he's dry. He's dry, not because he wants to, but because there is a bondage of poverty that has not allowed him to stay with God and hear the counsel of God. You think that it's just about money. You think it's about position. You think it's about rest. You think it's about time. When Satan has played out what he wants to, you will hear God speak, but you will not be able to hearken. What makes you feel that many people in a long time, when they show back in church, you now say, God said, they say, you push, just go, we send our money. The guy was called an apostle to go to nations, but after a long procured levels of bondage, the anguish of his spirit ministered to him that he cannot do anything again. I don't want to agree to what Satan wants for my life. Pharaoh wanted to break the spirit of the Israelites. Do you know the Israelites turned back and began to fight Moses, their deliverer? How do you fight a man that wants to help you? bondage. Bondage will not allow you hear from the man that will order your steps into righteousness and into your rest. Something tells you that if you make more blocks today, if you make more bricks for Pharaoh, you'll be able to get his favor. Who told you Satan favors men? Satan will work your life out, but he intends for something that the day God now tells you, thou mighty man of valor, you will not be able to hear it again. You will doubt God when you see him, because bondage has worked out its realities. But we have a help, and the help is called Jesus. Jesus came and said, I am the Lord of the Sabbath. That means the Sabbath day is not Saturday, it's not Sunday, it's not Monday, it's not Tuesday. Now it's not a day, it's a person. And if the person is allowed to come into the scenario, the person can attack that anguish of spirit and bondage of body, cruelty, so that you can hear God clearly. Do you see how hard it is to hear God when you worry? Do you see how hard it is to hear God when you are in a busy place, a noisy place? I want us to raise a cry again. Lord of the Sabbath, come and refresh me. Don't let the anguish of spirit and the cruelty of bondage take me out of the place of a hearkening ear. Bring me out. I will not succumb. That addiction wants you to succumb to the reality that God cannot use you. But I came to tell you, reject the testimony of darkness. Reject it. There's more to you than the bondage. There's more to you than the anguish of spirit. There's more to you than the warfare around your life. Awake! The Lord of the Sabbath is with us. Kalimanta kapasi valati. Paranda babaski maboria kapanta. Ai yakomo fofolotwa. Ibeyata ikomsata. Bembekita kambalai. Aruta bebeske bafantu akai. Apokaria tenanta sabas. We operate from the place of rest. Say, come unto me, all you that are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. There is rest. There is rest. There is rest. There is humanity rest. And the Lord Jesus Christ is that rest. Jesus. Baptize me with your rest. Can you enter his rest? There's an opening in the spirit. You cannot live here with anguish in your spirit. You cannot live here with cruelty of bondage on your body, upon your business, upon your career, upon your calling. Something that stops you from hearing God. The streams are open. I will not be lost in the anguish. I will not be lost in the cruelty. The Lord of the Sabbath is with me. Aboka baila kambe kamonka boakate abelata bela bambesa bakuska babelate erufa bakaria koprekopeste belate ile ambreselate ayane kapaparia takumba kata papai yakabamba kababaria kabamba la takai arwata kabakamba babakamba la takai ekuteliata aprinde kopeteliata zange testepelekete biliata irioko tokotwa kwate ateberete babanda de cabe, abraka papante papa scupe latwa, abeferia papata cabe, apapa yata papa scabe, apo, apapamba kapapapai, arapapapai, akomba kapapapai, my God and my helper. Keriba kambele ataboto, shalaka brande sakaboto, salia kakakumre, yakai, yai. Rest can come into your marriage. Rest can come into your business. Rest can come into your career. Rest can come into your calling. Rest can come into your mind. He can come. He's around. Our rest and refreshing is around. Jesus.
Jesus, tonight we decree we will be many that will fall in love with you. Jesus, tonight we decree we will be many that will fall in love with you.
The Lord of the Sabbath is on my matter. Lord of the Sabbath is on my matter. The Lord of the Sabbath is on my matter. The Lord of the Sabbath is on my matter. The Lord of the Sabbath is on my matter. The Lord of the Sabbath is on my matter. The Lord of the Sabbath is on our matter. The Lord of the Sabbath is on your matter. It's on our matter.
Ebenezer, holy dignitary, infinitary, Kaya, Ibunitai, Tinahubeli, Italudeli, Ibumitai, Inamudeli, Itaitelu, Imande, Haile, Tahome, Haikali, Ahibenita,
Refuse to give in. Refuse to give in to the anguish. Refuse to submit to the cruel bondage. Greater is he that is in us than he that is in the world. It's like fire, it burns in my bones. The counsel of Yahweh burns in my bones. It's like fire, it burns in my bones. The counsel of Yahweh, it burns in my bones.
It's like fire, it burns in my bones. The counsel of Yahweh. It burns in my bones.
It's like fire.
It's like fire. It burns in my bones. The counsel of Yahweh. It burns in my bones.
Oh me yeah. Oh me yeah oh. Mo fẹ́ omi yẹ o tó ń ṣọ́ látorí ìtẹ́ wa. Omi yẹ o. Mo fẹ́ omi yẹ o tó ń ṣọ́ látorí ìtẹ́ wa. Omi yẹ.
Omi yẹ. Omi yẹ o. Mo fẹ́ omi yẹ o tó ń ṣọ́ látorí ìtẹ́ wa.
Omi yẹ.
Omi yẹ.
Omi yẹ.
Omi yẹ o. Mo fẹ́ omi yẹ o tó ń ṣọ́ látorí ìtẹ́ wa.
Omi yẹ. Omi yẹ o. Mo fẹ́ omi yẹ o tó ṣọ́ látorí ìtẹ́ wa.
Omi yẹ. Omi yẹ o. Mo fẹ́ omi yẹ o tó ṣọ́ torí ìtẹ́ wa. Omi yẹ. Omi yẹ o. Mo fẹ́ omi yẹ o tó ṣọ́ torí. Elibunoga hilideli. Omi yẹ. Omi yẹ o. Mo fẹ́ omi yẹ o tó ń ṣọ́ látorí ìtẹ́ wa.
Omi yẹ.
Omi yẹ.
Omi yẹ.
Omi. Elile anaga ibili telagome. Atelier, atelier. Atelier, atelier. Omi yẹ. Omi yẹ. Omi yẹ o. Mo fẹ́ omi yẹ o tó ń ṣọ́ látorí ìtẹ́ wa.
Omi yẹ.
Omi yẹ.
Omi yẹ.
Omi yẹ o. Mo fẹ́ omi yẹ o tó ń ṣọ́ látorí ìtẹ́ wa. Omi yẹ. Onílé ẹlẹ́bìdá ẹlẹ́rìí. Táyìlì bí tẹ́lágò, ẹ̀yìn bí lè tẹ́lágò.
Omi yẹ. Omi yẹ o. Mo fẹ́ mọ omi yẹ o tó ń ṣàn látorí ìtẹ́. Decide it. Decide it. Decide it. I will not cave in to the anguish of spirit and the cruelty of bondage. I will not. I will not. If Satan kicks me, I will stand up and I will still believe God again. I will not. That's the declaration I want you to make into your spirit, man. There is no excuse as powerful as what God said to you. So I will not cave in. that issue that has repeated itself long enough that it is now making you think in a certain way, refuse it now. Decide it. I will not be regulated by anguish of spirit, nor the cruelty of bondage. I believe God. I believe God because the Lord of the Sabbath dwells in me. So I drink from his rest. From the fountain of life, let it flow, Spirit flow. From the fountain of life, let it flow, Spirit flow. From the fountain,
From your fountain of life, let it flow, Spirit flow. From your fountain of life, let it flow, Spirit flow. From your fountain of life, let it flow, Spirit flow. From the fountain